Welcome and thank you for coming. It's a privilege and an honor to be here to celebrate the life of Robert Quade. You know, I'm not for sure, but I would not have been surprised if there was a C on Robert Quade's heart. A tattooed C. And I don't have proof, but just the way he carried himself in our community. He had such pride. He made us laugh. He made us cry. He gave us encouragement. Robert Quade made us better. And today we take time to remember his life. Well, not just today, because he will never be forgotten. Let's, however, give ourselves permission to celebrate. And there are so many reasons. Robert Quade was everywhere. And his fingerprints are all over our centenary community. I think Psalm 139 is fitting as I share it, and it reads, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me." Robert Quade, Spirit lives on today. Let us pray together. Eternal God, maker of us all, we come before you and celebrate the life of Robert Quade. Give us light to fulfill his big footsteps, courage for our future ahead, and strength as we continue to lead today. And as we remember today, may these memories call us to a greater centenary community, sharing his enthusiasm, his love, and his devotion that he taught us. God, I pray boldly that you might rise up some more Robert Quades among us. And to Bob, I pray, may the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine and warm upon your face. May the rain fall shortly and softly upon the fields until we meet again. May God hold you in the hollow of his hand. Amen.
Of all the people I've met in my life, I would have to say that Bob is the person to whom I would award the title, one of a kind. Bob was fond of telling folks that he hired me. So if you like what's happening, kudos to Bob. If you don't like what's happening, I don't know what to tell you. When I started teaching at Centenary, Bob assigned me the job of coordinating the Centenary High School business competition. Anybody here remember that? We did it for many years. It involved a great deal of grunt work, and he was constantly looking over my shoulder to make sure that I was doing it correctly. Our first fight occurred over his management style in this regard. There would be other fights to come, but much more often there would be a spirit of collaboration, camaraderie, accomplishment, and mutual respect. At one point during Bob's tenure as chair of the business department, he was the only male professor in the department, and most of the female professors had small children. At one point, Bob decided that he didn't want us to cancel our classes if any of the children were ill. So he bought a playpen and put it in his office and told us to bring the sick kids there, and he would take care of them while we taught our classes. Well, without going into all the gory details, let me just tell you that one sick kid later, the playpen was history. By the way, my children remember Bob with great fondness. At one of the campus picnics many years ago, we had a dunk tank that Bob sat in. My family had to eat spaghetti for about a week after that because I gave my kids most of the food budget money so they could continue to buy chances to dunk him. He was a great sport about it, but he never stopped reminding me or them of it. The last time that I saw Bob at his home, he spoke about many of the arrangements that he was making for his funeral, so he was sure he'd be getting the best possible deal. Only Bob would have done this. I spoke to Bob on the phone the night before he died. After an extended conversation where he did almost all the talking, before he hung up, he said, "Well, goodbye, dear, and thanks for everything." Bob led Centenary Blue, and he was one of the first people that I met at Centenary who understood the potential that this institution had. He was a great mentor to me, and certainly one of a kind. So goodbye, Bob, and thanks for everything.
I was also hired by Bob Quade, actually 3 times as an adjunct, 3/4 time and full-time. So the blame trickles down, if we want to blame him, and many more people in the audience I know Bob had a hand in hiring. I felt truly blessed to have been a presenter when Bob received his 25th anniversary award here at Centenary. I'm glad I was able to cover some of the highlights of his impact on Centenary directly to him, and I'm really glad of that, and I'm glad of the conversations we had. I also got the update on the funeral arrangements and the playing off of 2 crematories, but so yeah, that was interesting. But truly, he had a huge impact on Centenary, and that was the point that I was trying to make. And I know he enjoyed the sartorial splendor of all the bow ties, so thanks to everyone who made that special. Don't worry, I won't repeat myself. There's many Bob Quade stories to tell. And today, I'm just here to share briefly his impact as a professor and as a department chair. Although, over the years, I'm glad Barbara is a very balanced person who had many different sides to him, and I certainly saw him that a few times, usually with good cause. But I can sum up in 2 words his impact on people, and students especially. He cared. He cared about Centenary especially. He cared about everyone involved with Centenary, faculty, staff, students, alum. Years ago, at a graduation reception, a former president of Centenary asked a student, "What will you miss most about Centenary?" Without missing a beat, she said, "Professor Quade." The way I heard it, and this was from both the student and from Professor Quade, the former president's response was something like, "Why?" She answered, "Because I always knew he cared about me." This is at the heart of him having such a big impact on people. Students and everyone always knew that he cared. The student I just mentioned took several classes from Bob, and it goes to show the impact a professor can have. Fast forward to yesterday. I was teaching my ASC class with our new first-year students. Unfortunately, they never got to meet Bob, most of them. However, his memorial came up. The students are beginning to notice the things that are going on around the college. And also present in this class were my 2 wonderful first-year leaders who assist me in the class, a junior and senior. Well, one of whom is a wrestler, so we know the impact that Bob would have on him. My other Phil reminded me that she mentioned that she wanted to attend the service today and to honor Professor Quade, and she said that Professor Quade made her feel special. Same story, right? Well, not exactly. Please note, my first-year leader met Bob once. She reminded me that I introduced her to him at an award ceremony in her freshman year. He complimented her smile, and she does have a lovely smile. They chatted a bit, and perhaps have said hello across the campus since then. She was looking forward to taking his class this fall. Unfortunately, that was not meant to be. I miss Bob very much, as I'm sure everyone here does, but I can't help but smile when I do think of him. Contact with Bob made us feel special and cared for. Think about it. A compliment, an attaboy or attagirl, a smile, a kind word, a note, or even cheerleader if you've done something good. How many people have received any of the above? That's what dominated his interaction with students and with everyone, whether they had straight A's or had failed a class. Certainly not afraid of tough love, but very, very willing to share your triumphs with you and make sure to bring out the best. What a great and shining example that Bob is, that he can have an impact on students that he knew for years, as well as students that he met just once. Professor Quade had many great accomplishments, and you'll hear more about them shortly. Life-saving product for Johnson & Johnson, founding the wrestling team, founding the SIFE team, founding the NJCBAA, which is an association of New Jersey business schools. All the business schools talk because of Bob. And speaking of impact, by the way, the NJCBAA members told me that he taught them how to be department chairs. On a daily basis, though, what makes me smile to remember is the impact, the way that he made people feel special, and that's something. It's amazing to think the impact that one person can have on that daily basis, and truly, it's a legacy. Thanks.
My name is John Harris, and I'm the head wrestling coach here at Centenary College. Professor Quade was part of the hiring committee that hired me in 2006. He would often joke that he took the blame for hiring me, rather than the credit. I never thought growing up that I would have a good friend in their late 80s before I was in my 60s, but that is exactly what Professor Quade was to me, a good friend and a mentor. I have so many fond memories of Professor Quade, from his antics of going green when we reached 17, or doing it again when we broke into the top 10, strapping on the singlet for public eliminations, and beating my own assistant coach, Mike Kessler, in front of 500 Centenary fans. Or how he would be following us at the national tournament, sending us pictures of himself with an incredible Hulk cutout wearing a Centenary wrestling singlet. At Bob's last speech here at the college, he mentioned he didn't know who started the saying, "Cyclone Pride." And it really doesn't matter who did, because he lived it. I could think of no other person on campus that had as much Cyclone Pride as Professor Quade. With that said, I would like to make a special tribute to Professor Quade. Are you ready? When I say Cyclone, you say Pride. We're going to do this 3 times. Cyclone. Pride. Cyclone. Pride. Cyclone. Pride. That one was for you, Professor Quade. God bless.
and special relationship with Bob in many facets here at the college. I knew him as the athletic director, also as the vice president for enrollment, and then later, a little bit later down the road, as the fundraising person. So Bob was always sitting on the bench outside my office with a new idea. Very creative. He had a lot of ideas and ways to help the college improve itself. So when I think of Bob and reflect back, I think about Bob as our #1 fan. Cyclone Pride. Not sure where it came from, but I do love that statement. He was dedicated, he was a mentor, he was a friend, he was loyal, but most of all, he motivated all of us to do our very best, and that meant bleed centenary blue. Always have centenary in the back of your mind in any situation, and wherever you are in life, you can strike up a conversation about the college and help us improve ourselves. And Bob did that constantly. Bob sat outside my office when I was the athletic director and asked for an appointment. And this is when we were a non-conference membership. We had no full-time coaches, and we were just trying to establish ourselves with the NCAA. And Bob wanted to start a club wrestling team. Obviously, it wasn't my first priority, but it was Bob's first priority. And we know how that goes. So we had several meetings and several discussions, and I said, okay, Bob, if you can get a roster and you can fill a squad, we'll do some fundraising, and hopefully we'll be able to get you some singlets. And we have some fold-out mats that we have from the olden days, and you can start with that, and we'll see how it goes. Well, 6 months later, I was on the phone with Rarick Valley Community College, trying to find donated wrestling mats because he had 22 young men that wanted to wrestle. So Bob didn't take things lightly. He was a man of action. So we rented a truck, a U-Haul truck, and Rarick Valley said, come get the mats if you want them. They're yours. You just have to take them to your campus. Meanwhile, everyone knows how heavy a wrestling mat is, especially the wrestlers here. 15 years ago, they were twice as heavy. And these mats, getting them into the wrestling, into the U-Haul was not a problem. It was when we arrived on our campus, and we had the old gym, and we had to back up to the double-door glass doors and get these mats as close as we could to unload them. So I jumped out of the truck, and I said to Bob, you see the big, or to Joe, who was driving, the volunteer coach, you see the big oak tree, right? And he said, yeah, I got it. Well, you know, revved it up, here we go, ready to go reverse, slammed right into the tree. No joke. I had used my own credit card, and it was restored, thank God. So Bob comes along, and he said, terrific, the mats are here. We're trying to get the door open. But as you know, on those trucks, when you roll that up, it's kind of like a blind, and you have to have somewhere to go. Well, it was a complete V. So Bob says, oh, you have a jack in your car, can you grab it? So I ran over to my car and get it, and I think Billy Joe ran over to her car to get one, and Bob had one in his car, and here we are, all jacking the door to this truck up until it was wide enough just to slide these wrestling mats out and to get them into the gym. Thank God facilities came along, because we all probably would have killed ourselves doing this. There was no funnier moment than backing into the tree and then returning the truck and the man telling me, you were moving wrestling mats and I knew I shouldn't let a woman drive a truck. And I wasn't driving, by the way, but Bob was thrilled. So here we have these orange and red wrestling mats. And about 3 months later, we held our first home match. It was an intramural, or it was a non-season wrestling tournament. And let me tell you, the young men that year were on fire. They were so excited to be able to have a wrestling tournament at home that they just really dominated in some areas, and they needed a lot of work in some other ones. But the pride that I could see on Bob's face that day was tremendous. Two very important lessons I learned from working with Bob in the many areas that I did. One was never give up on anything. Anything is possible. I think centenary pride is contagious, and Bob showed us that. So when you're feeling like things can't be done, turn to somebody who can rev you up and get you going. And I think that was one of the things that Bob did best. He found ways to work around obstacles. And the other thing about Bob was notes and quotes. Constantly sending me notes and quotes, whether it's out of paper or whatever. Bob was an excellent motivator and a salesman. He sent out many news clippings and articles about Centenary College and cyclone success stories. I had a student athlete, a female, call me. She was on the soccer team. And she said, Miss Finn, I keep getting these notes in my mailbox with newspaper clippings about the number of goals I've saved with "way to go" and a big Q on it. And I said, oh, that's Bob Quade. And she said, who is he? I said, he's one of our business faculty. And she said, oh, that's really nice and very thoughtful. So I went back to my office, and I have a little folder there that I keep, nice notes or compliments or things that are meaningful. And it goes all the way back to 1996. Centenary freshman picked top rookie of the year. Mona Resaisi, a freshman guard from Centenary College, was selected as the ECAC Metro New Jersey Division III Women's Basketball Rookie of the Year. Diane Finnan, how sweet it is. Q. So what I learned from that was Bob's little notes mean so much to student athletes, to faculty, to staff. And he's an incredible and dedicated person, and always was. Our faculty athletic rep was Bob Quade. He was the second one we had. We got complimented in our conference for the amount of work Bob did with the FAR group, and also by the NCAA about how active he was. And it was truly his dedication to every student athlete here that he wanted to do the best that he could. And he was a true inspiration. So, as I sat out at the soccer game on, I think it was Tuesday, and I usually walked out and saw Bob sitting there in the bleachers, I said, well, I know our #1 fan is here because he was always here. It was a weird feeling, but Bob, you're missed but never forgotten. Thanks for all you've done for Centenary.
Well, when you get towards the end, I don't have much to say because they've said a lot. But I'm sure that I can echo many of their comments. I'm sure that all of us around the room can echo some of the sentiments that they shared. And the notes, I got them when I was a student athlete. I got them when I was a staff member. I'm still getting notes now. I think he's sending me notes from above, giving me lots of work to do while he's still gone. But from our standpoint in athletics, he did do a lot for us. And we have taken some steps to recognize and honor Bob for what he's done. And we've named our study lounge outside of the wrestling room in his honor. And there's a plaque that we hung there, and there's information on the back of the program about that. Ethiopia Reads was a project that was dear to his heart that he started with his granddaughter by shipping books over to Ethiopia and other places to allow students there to learn to read and also to experience some of our culture. That is going to continue, and anyone who wants to help out with that, I can surely use the help. We have thousands of books that we haven't packed yet that we have to ship by next fall or next summer. And we're also going to, the college will be starting an endowed scholarship in Bob's name. So those are the ways that we've begun to recognize what Bob has been able to do for us and for so many. If you're wanting to help out or learn more about that, I'd be happy to talk with anyone about those things later. I do want to say thank you to the Rotary Club members. They were the group that was gracious enough to donate to us the bow tie keepsakes that everyone should have got today with your program. So thank you to the Rotary for allowing us to have something. And, you know, like Diane said, and some of the others, Bob was always good with ideas. He was always good with seeing things through to action and making sure that things got done. So if I had to say one thing about him, he was definitely a go-getter and get-it-done kind of person. And again, I feel the ramifications of that because he's still leaving me work to do with Ethiopia Reads. So those are the stories that I'd love to share with you, and anyone who ever wants to share a story with me, I'd be happy to hear it or have lunch one day to share your stories. Thank you.
So as you can tell from what everyone's had to say so far, Bob was not shy. When I began working here at Centenary as the director of the Career Center in 1999, Bob was the first person to come through the door and introduce himself. We talked about how the Career Center and the business department could develop internships, and he left saying, "We can do great and wonderful things together." I enjoyed his visits, his notes that people have talked about, and eventually his sense of humor. One day, I received a full-page, full-color advertisement from him. It was from one of the casinos in Atlantic City. There was a picture of a chorus line with the middle spot blank. And the text said something like, "You can fill this spot." The note from Bob said, "Find someone to fill this position. You and I are too short." And then the ubiquitous cue. Now fast forward to Bob's retirement when he assumed his duties as Professor Emeritus. One of the things that he took on was the faculty athletic representative. He took that responsibility very, very seriously. He was always looking for ways to improve the centenary experience for student athletes. And he was appointed by the president, but there was no budget, and he was just one man, and how could he do it all? So he created the FAB, the Faculty Advisory Board. And we would sit around and he would give us ideas and we would help him implement them. And it was really a joy to work with him on those endeavors. He instituted the recognition of scholar athletes on campus for each sports season. One of the last things he did last spring was to get us all moving at breakneck pace to have a faculty appreciation breakfast. Each of the athletes that had been named a scholar athlete invited their favorite professor to breakfast. And it was really, really a wonderful event to attend, and he attended by bat phone. Another wonderful time with Bob was when he was inducted into the Centenary Athletic Hall of Fame. There were a number of people who had wonderful things to say about him, and it was very interesting to see him stand between Mona, who Diane just talked about, who was one of those Rookies of the Year, and Diane Finnan herself, who was also inducted. The FAR Fab, now that we have also helped with the searches for new coaches. Just this last spring, Billy was looking for a new women's basketball coach. Bob couldn't come, but he emailed me. "I vote for any candidate that's shorter than me." "Sorry, Bob, we hired Rachel. She's statuesque." Late this last spring, when Bob was planning for the transition of all his responsibilities, he asked if I would be interested in taking over the farm. He said, "You and Chris Lynn can arm wrestle for it." Well, Chris declined. "I got this, Bob, and I'm the short one."
I think if Bob were here right now, he would say, "Why so glum, chum?" I asked him recently, I said, "Bob, what's with the bow tie?" He said, "Well, I thought it would make me stand out." I said, "Bob, they've started naming things after you and you're still alive. I don't think you need a bow tie to stand out." My mother came to Rotary one time not too long ago, and he completely charmed her, which is a huge surprise. And she paid him the biggest compliment that I hear from her. And afterwards she said to me, "What a guy!" and he was some kind of a guy. I think we're all getting the idea of how much difference one person can make in the lives of so many. My name is Norman Worth. I'm a trustee here at the college, and I've known Bob Quade for maybe 25 years. And the first time I ever heard his name, I hope I can get this right, I got a phone call, and he said, "Norman, it's Bob Quade from Centenary College." I said, "Hi, Bob." He says, "I want you to be the chairman of my business advisory council." I said, "Well, I didn't know you had a business advisory council." "Well, we're starting one up, and I want to start with you. I think you should be the chairman." I said, "Well, that's very flattering, Bob. I don't really think I have the time to do this." And he says, "Sure, you can make time. Once you get to know us, you'll have plenty of time." I says, "I don't know, Bob. I just don't think I've got so many things going on." He says, "Well, we won't have any meetings. We'll have one meeting a year." I said, I don't know, Bob. I don't want to really be on an organization where I'm only, a name, and I don't really feel like." He says, "Don't worry about it." He says, it'll be easy. You'll come in. We won't have any meetings." And I said, "Bob, look, I don't know how else to say this, but no, I really can't do it. No." And so he says, "Well, you're going to change your answer to yes as soon as you come over here and we can talk about this." And I finally reached back to the only objection that I know that you cannot overcome, and I said, "Bob, I don't want to." And he said, after a beat and a half, he said, "I can see you're going to need some time to think this over." And I thought, who is this guy? And I can't tell you how many times in the last 20 years when I'm up against a brick wall and I'm getting nowhere, and my last resort is, "I can see you need some time to think this over." Bob Quade was lucky. He had a lot of gifts, and he was lucky because he was able to put those gifts to very good use. He was intelligent. He tested for an IQ of 159, and he had a gift for science and math, and he had a winning personality. He was charming and witty, and born to parents who provided him with an authentic American experience. But where did his willpower come from? His force. He gave me a clue when he told me some things about himself shortly before he died. I was able to spend a few hours with him. And in a way, he had the luxury of knowing that his time was limited, and he wanted to get a few things on the record and maybe off his chest. And the few things he wanted me to share with you. He grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and in the 4th grade, he was diagnosed with a heart murmur, and they thought it might be rheumatic fever. And so they kept him out of 4th grade, and he wasn't let back in till the 5th grade, and he wasn't allowed to participate in phys ed, any sports, until the 10th grade. So he missed all those games, and he missed all that competition. If you knew Bob Quade, you know he's all about competition. But he proceeded to make up for it, and make up for that lost time. He didn't play team sports because he'd been out of the loop for so long. He didn't know the rules. He didn't have the normal eye-hand coordination you get from playing football and basketball. So boxing and wrestling became his sports of choice, to the point where when he was very proud of this, at age 17 he was offered a professional boxing contract. And he told me that one of his regrets was that he didn't take it, because it might have led him to an altogether different adventure. Not that the one he left with many regrets. Although he tried twice to volunteer for military service, once toward the end of World War II rather, he would have said World War I. He had a twin brother who was a Marine Raider in the Pacific. And he was also rejected trying to get into the Navy during the Korean War, only to be rejected not because of his height, he was a 1/4 inch in the clear, he told me, but because of his teeth. He had an overbite. You see some of these pictures. And he never really got an explanation as to why that disqualified him. He joked that maybe he couldn't properly pull the pin on a grenade. But in high school, he was proud of the record that stands to this day, he told me. His record for the fastest pin at Thomas Jefferson High School. 3 seconds. He joked that he and another kid banged heads, knocked each other unconscious, and Bob fell on top of him for the pin. He would joke about it, but he wanted you to know he had the record. Another thing he was proud of and wanted me to tell you, he was named to the All-State Marching Band, playing bass clarinet. And he modestly said that they needed 3, 4 of us tried out, and 2 blew into the wrong end of the horn. Again, a joke, but he wanted you to know he was all-state. And then also he marched in a college game with Iowa and Notre Dame, and he just worshipped John Philip Sousa. In his professional life at Johnson & Johnson, we heard it earlier, he developed a product that allowed for portable sterilization that he believed was instrumental in saving many lives. It was something that allowed him near the end of his life to say proudly, without a self-deprecating joke, "I did that." He was very proud of that. And something else that he did that was no mean feat, he touched the lives of people wherever he went. He challenged people, made them better. He carried around a can of can-do. He had one of the most distinguished careers in the history of Centenary. A man in full, the great American novelist Tom Wolfe might say. Bob's contributions to Centenary has been better described by others today, but his range was what defined him. From the business school success, let's not forget who hired Dr. Luthroy, to the SIFE team he developed, to founding a wrestling program that has grown into a national power. All of it and much, much more is graced with Bob Quade's signature, as was the Hackettstown Rotary Club, many of whom are sitting right here today. We meet every Tuesday at 12:15 at the Pump House. Bob was one of 25 to 30 people who was there every week to pitch in and do his part in any way possible to make this a better community. And he didn't mind a little fun occasionally came along the way. He also didn't mind that half the club consisted of women who found him charming, debonair, and a very good listener. The guys liked him too, and came to admire him a great deal, but we didn't exactly see the same twinkle in his eyes that the girls saw. He was the guy who just made you feel better knowing he was in the room. He had a rapier wit, and as one member described, he was never shy to delight in a joke, even if it was at his own expense, and it often was, especially jokes about his height or age. But he would usually, as you heard earlier, beat you to the punchline. At the end of our Rotary meeting, we'd pull a card from a Trivial Pursuit game, where one of the members picks a category and he tries to answer a question. And Bob would invariably get it right, and the answer would be Cicero or Julius Caesar or Calvin Coolidge, and someone would say, "How could you possibly know that?" And Bob would say, "Well, we were friends. We played cribbage together." We all knew he was a special guy. We knew that we were blessed to have him with us. And it was still a shock to see him leave us. And to soften the blow, we had a little online wake, I guess, where we shared some stories and attempted to define him with a single word. And I'll give you a few of the descriptions of one, Professor Robert T. Quade. From our president, Bob Everly, who stands 6'5". Bob Quade is one of the tallest men I know. We heard, so funny, so smart, so kind. He was like Snoopy, the dog, keen wit, a sharp eye for irony, and was a true companion. Plus he wanted his lunch on time. Flattering was one word that was used, and I don't think it was a guy who used it. He may have wrestled in a lightweight class, but as a man, he was a heavyweight. One member made up a word, Quadelicious. I think Bob would like that a lot. One went further, the perfect male cocktail. Smart, funny, sexy, elegant, and loyal. Not bad. Another said of Bob Quade, a true gentleman, and yet another, a great listener. Centenary's own Nancy Pavendorf's word, involved. Where wasn't he involved? And when wasn't he right in the middle of just about everything? Hackettstown Mayor and fellow Rotarian Maria DiGiovanni's word for Bob Quade, beloved. She told the story about volunteering with Bob at a golf outing, and they were out on the course, and it was early in the spring, and these gnats were chasing her around, and she was swatting them off and running around, and he said, "Keep it up, kid. It's good for my image. People will think I'm chasing you." The club's Kevin Guyette, a female Kevin, summed it up pretty well. Bob knew when to lead and understood when to give the lead to others. He was the first to volunteer and first to show up, even for a food drive in the freezing cold. He was Rotary's ambassador wherever he went, and he was the club's foremost expert on ancient history, because as he would remind us, he lived it. He was a gentleman, a smartass, a scholar, and a good sport. But most of all, he loved us and loved that we loved him. And I think that can be said for all of us today. Near the end, Bob talked about the new Bob versus the old Bob. The new Bob had greater appreciation of the life that he led, had greater gratitude for his wife Rita, a woman who was his equal. And he showed an aching affection for his 3 sons and the challenges they endured together. Both the new Bob and the old Bob were amazed by the grandkids, especially Caitlin, who taught him about Ethiopia and whom he described as the best of us. When Bob's doctor gave him a grim diagnosis about his cancer, he said, "Bob, I don't think I can catch up to what you've got." And Bob's response was, "Then let's not chase it." He was proud of that. And he felt good about that he was able to skip the first 4 steps of grief and go right to number 5, which was acceptance. And at the end, he did make peace with most of the things that he had some regret in his life about. He was proud that his life took him to 24 countries and 48 states. He always seemed to keep score. After all, he did teach statistics. But in the end, he had a chance to communicate with so many people, especially from the Centenary community. And he said he felt a tide of acceptance. The last time I saw him, I said, "How do you feel?" He said, "I feel loved." And judging by what we've all heard today, he certainly was. Thank you. We will leave you with a video tribute that John Garrix, the wrestling coach, put together. John, you want to tell us about how this came together? He does. John was also responsible for this bow tie.
When I get the phone call that Professor Quade, was terminally ill, we wanted to come together as we always did, how he always brought us together, and pay tribute and respect to him. And the only way we knew how was to bring back the alumni and some of the current students. I knew his sickness was spreading fast. So about a week to create this. And Ben Masters, our sports information guy, actually had 2 days to put this together. And you know, I would like to give him a round of applause for doing this. And I would like to thank Kevin Fountain as well for them to working on this clip, or on this video, because they cut it down for you guys. This video clip, I mean, we went around the country finding alumni and fans and people that, you know, supported Professor Quade or had an impact with Professor Quade. And, you know, we compiled all this in 1 week. And, you know, I gave Ben 2 days to put it all together. And, you know, hours and hours of doing that. With that said, I would like to present our tribute video